Good morning, everybody. It's Tao at the Forge, and welcome to Rotation Sunday. So let's see what's going on in Arena today. We are going to first try and cash in this 25 lands, and nothing. Okay, so white or blue spells. All right, shouldn't be too bad. We got some packs. Okay, so there's a couple things I wanted to do today. I just wanted to go through these are I've been talking about for a couple days now. Sealed and Premier Draft are probably the best things to play right now, but Quick Draft Ikoria is okay if you need the cards from there. But really, I don't know how many cards from Ikoria are actually really needed in the current standard. So I would say, maybe save your gold or whatever, and if you're going to go into an event, do one of these ones. And see if there's any other events. Nope, that's it. And then you can just play these ones, to earn your daily rewards. Okay, so let's do the store. So today I want to go to the store, and then then I want to go through a few tips for going into sealed, and it actually goes with draft as well. All right, so if you're interested in actually doing well in the sealed event, then just watch on. All right, so let's go store. All right, 500 gems. All right, well, that's pretty much a given. You're going to have to, if you can convert gems or gold from gems, then that is pretty much it. So typically, 500 gems would cost you 2,500 gold. So I would actually say that this is worth it, right? So for sure, I'm going to get that because it's always hard to get gems, right? It's easy to get gold, but hard to get gems. So you should be very reluctant to ever spend your gems. Okay. So let's go take a look. These are all waste of time, by the way. Even at 50% off, I'd say a lot of people don't really like this sort of comic book card style, right? It's just, I don't know. It makes Magic seem more, I don't know, juvenile, I guess. I don't know. Some people really like it, but I'm not personally a fan of this card style. Okay. Anyways, let's go to the packs, and then we'll go to. Let's see what we got, and then we'll go into the sealed event there. Let's see. Okay, so Cleric of Life's Blood. So in this one, I found that there's actually a lot of Cleric synergy, but I'm not sure if there's any. So far, I haven't really seen super Rogue or Wizard synergy, but that could be just what I've seen here. So okay, and all right. These lands. These lands are going to be actually pretty important, right? Like being able to choose one or the other is basically, especially one like this, or you can choose either land, right? Helps you fix your mana, and that's going to be a super important one. And these I think are going to find value too. So if you have these, you should not trade them, just keep them. All right. So anyways, these are if you have a chance, let's say you're building a deck and it requires you to trade in wildcards, these are always a solid investment, right? Like any of the temples, the pain lands or things like that, those are always useful, right? If you can ever get them cheap or whatever, they're always good to have. Right? I never feel bad about getting those. Okay, let's go to this one here. So Journey to Oblivion. Okay. Enters the battlefield, use a target on permanent. Okay, that's an interesting one. Okay, and Prowling Barons. What's this? Put 2+1/+1 counters on Prowling Baron, then you may have it become a 0/0 elemental creature till end of turn. It's still a land. Alright, so this one could become a creature, and it just gets bigger and bigger. This would be kind of I wouldn't say that this is necessarily the best, but I'd say it's kind of like a good oh shit card, because in case you run out of creatures or something like that, it could be a good finisher. Your opponent might forget about it, and it just gets bigger and bigger if they can't deal with it, especially because a lot of destroy things say destroy target non-land permanent. Alright, so as I said, I want to go and talk about the sealed events, and this would go for draft as well. So I decided to play sealed because I've mentioned that I actually enjoy sealed more than draft. I feel like drafting is good, but I guess they're about the same. But really, sometimes you get lucky in draft and you get extra rares or really great cards. But sealed, I think, is just less stressful. Overall, I find you just got the cards you got is the cards you got, and you got to make what you can out of them. Right? So that's, I think, how I like sealed. But as you can see, I'm doing okay. So I've got 4-0 right now, and that doesn't mean I'm super amazing, but I always find that I can always get to 3 and 4 wins at least, right? at 4-0, I'm, and I believe that the way they pair you up is now with other people who are also 4-0. I don't think it's just random people, but it could be wrong. But then afterwards, like I'm likely to get at least to 5. It's unlikely I'll get to, 3 straight losses in a row. Like, watch me lose 3 in a row now. All right, but anyways, I'm kind of excited because this means that 1,400 gems, right? That, like, I consider all these to be about 2,000 gems to get in. Right, so at 1,400 gems, I've got 9 packs. So through 3 packs and win, and then 6 packs you already got in there. So this would mean that, I essentially paid 600 gems for 9 packs, right? Which is like, what, 75 gems per pack, right? So that's actually, not too bad, right? Like, so, like, we're doing okay. We're starting to get into the good places here. Now, if I get to 1,600, that means I paid 400 gems for 9 packs, which is like 45 gems per pack, which is, like getting up there, getting to the value spots. All right, and then if I can get to 2,003, like, then I got the 9 packs essentially for free. All right, so anyways, I just wanted to talk about, like, let's go take a look at my sealed card pool and see what we got. Okay, so I decided to go with Orzhov colors, so black and white. And the reason why is, okay, so I want to just talk about, give some tips for this, is the first thing I did is I actually looked through all the cards I have, and there seems to be a lot, but it's actually not really that many. And then there are some things that I found that are kind of like a trap, right? And I almost fell for these traps a little bit as well. Now, the first thing you want to do is you've got to have a good core of creatures. So essentially what you're going to have is, out of your 40 cards, you're going to have 16 creatures, 16 lands, and 8 of anything else, right? So the 8 is kind of like nice to have stuff, all right? So those 8 nice to have things, those slots get filled really, really fast, all right? And so it's like, you think like, oh, 8 nice to have cards, that's really good, but it's actually really, really hard to fill them, right? Like, because there's a lot of stuff that you would just like to have that just seems nice, but you gotta be really careful and see, is there, like, what synergies you have, like what you actually have. So let's go take a look at blue and see, like, why I didn't play blue. All right, so if we look at blue, we got instance, like, we got to start looking at the creatures, right? You always start with the creatures, because if you don't have a core of creatures, your opponent's just going to beat the shit out of you, and then you're just not going to be able to do anything. So we got Zulaport Duelist, so 1, and then 2. This looks interesting, but this basically means that you can steal an artifact, but what if your opponent doesn't have an artifact? Right, so then you're kind of screwed there. Okay, so let's see. Zulaport 1 is a 1/1, and when it enters the battlefield, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 till the end of turn. Its controller mills 2 cards. Okay, so I mean, this could be like a little combat trick, to give your opponent's creature a -2/-0 and trade up. Right, so I'd say this would be something I would maybe consider. Thieving Skydiver, a 2/1 flyer, is still good because it's evasive, but it's unlikely you'll ever kick this. All right, Cunning Geyser Mage, right? It's a 3/2 for 3. When it enters the battlefield, is kicked. Return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand. Okay, that's actually all right as well, but for 6, it means that you're rarely ever going to be able to kick this, right? And then so you look like, okay, well, how many other creatures do I have, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, okay, 4, 5, 6, and this means that essentially I have to take all of these creatures, right? And then I'll still need 10 creatures from the other color that I choose. Now, typically, I always try and choose 2 colors, because unless I have, like, I drafted, or I got some lands that require you that help you to fix lands. So if you got fetch lands or things like that, then that would be better. But overall, it's hard to play 3 colors or more. Sometimes you have to, but it's hard to play 3 or more colors. Okay, so here we got a Mimic. This can copy a creature you control. All right, but that means you have to have a good creature down first to copy. All right. Okay, that could be really good though. Okay, when Cascades here enters the battlefield, scry X, where X is the number of creatures in your party. So you got a 3/3 for 4 that just allows you to scry. Okay, just okay. And then a 3/2 for 4 with flying, and that's actually good. The evasion is actually really nice. As long as you control another wizard, Expedition Diviner has, when this creature dies, draw a card. Okay, so it will replace itself, but only if you control another wizard, and only if your opponent doesn't kill that other wizard first. So these are like all very highly conditional cards. Like Last Pull Mimic could be good, but you got to get the right card down first, and it's not any creature on the battlefield. Plus, also, you don't really get like, you don't really get your core of creatures. All right, and then if you look, like, there's other things as well. So is there like what other spells does blue have, right? Like in this set. Now, blue could be really great in other sealed packages, but let's take a look. So we got Bubble Snare. That's basically just makes it so they can't attack or doesn't untap during untap step. Okay, that's actually good. I would pick this for sure, right? But there's only one. All right, target creature can go +0/+3 till end of turn. Okay, so this could be protection for your creatures, because you could give them hexproof, right? So this would actually be all right. Anti-cognition, counter target creature or planeswalker spell, unless his controller plays 2. Now the problem is this is okay, but later on in the game, like as the player gets more and more stuff, it's gonna be harder and harder or easier and easier for them to pay that extra 2. Yeah, if one has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, instead counter that spell, then scry 2. So this requires you to have like a very strong mill strategy, and my problem with this is that like it's only really going to be good in the early game. Like, okay, so creatures your opponent control get -2/-0. Now this might be a decent combat trick, but it's not. The thing is, like, it's just like it's probably not going to help you trade, right? It's okay, but anyways. And then this field research, draw 2 cards as the spell is quick, draw 3 cards. So that's actually pretty decent. But my problem with this is that it's, again, you're spending a turn and like maybe even 3 turns, right? Just 1 turn, just drawing cards, which is great, but you're not doing anything. And in the meantime, your opponent is going to be putting board pressure on you. Still, it's not horrible, but I mean, it's not like I'd rather put the board pressure down. Okay, so then I went to red and I looked, and okay, so red's got a 1/1 with haste, right? And that could be good, right? Magmatic, like none of these are just awful. Magmatic Channeler is probably going to be good as long as there are 4 more instant sorcery cards in your graveyard. He gets +3/+1, so he turns into a 4/4 for 2. Now the problem with this is this card will require you to have basically play a shit ton of instants and sorceries. But remember what I said is that you're going to need you're going to need 16 creatures and 8 other cards. So if your 8 other cards are all instants and sorceries, you're going to have to mill like half of them before this wizard's going to get the bonuses that they want, right? Or that you want to get out of them. And then you're going to need to you're going to have only one of these. So I feel like this one is a better constructed card rather than a sealed card, right? Or a draft card. Alright, Sizzling Barrage deals 4 damage to target creature that blocked this turn. Alright, so that's okay. So, what's it called? This is actually just a form of removal, which is decent. You always, if you remember bread, you're always looking for bombs and then removal next, right? But so far, so red, let's just take a look. Like, red actually has some decent creatures. This is not a good creature for what I have. Right, so we got 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I take them all, then I only have 6 again. So again, there's not really a good core of creatures. I would need to have, like, whatever other color I chose would have to have 10 creatures in it. Right, so this one could be okay. Yeah, I have 1/3, so it's got a good butt on it, and then you can pump it up later in case you didn't have extra mana. But again, I only have 1 of them. Alright, okay, so Expedition Champion gets +2/+0 as long as you control another warrior. So this could again be good as a 4/3 for 3, but again, highly situational. And how many other warriors do I have? I guess in red I have actually a lot of warriors, so that would actually be decent. Okay, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Skyclave GOP gets +2/+2 till end of turn, and it has tramples, so this can turn into a 3/3. But the only problem is if you run out of lands, or if you play this early, then your opponent can block it with like a 1/1 and it'll just die. All right. When Scorch Rider enters the battlefield is kicked, it gains haste until end of turn. Right. This is actually pretty good. Right. Just a 4/3 for 4. And same thing with this one. A 4/5 for 6 is with trample is actually pretty decent. Okay, so Synchronized Spellcraft deals 4 damage to target creature and X damage to the creature's controller. X is the number of creatures in your party. So this one is 5 mana, and it could be good as kind of a finisher, but you need to have the party, and if I choose red, then I'm going to get basically all warriors, right? So like everything, I'm not going to take this, right? So this would mean I'd only get 5 creatures out of it, right? But then they're all warriors, except for one. Okay, so there's a warrior and an insect. So there's what? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'd still get 6 creatures, 5 of which are all warriors. Now, that's not the worst, all right? Like, I actually considered taking red, but then you'd need basically 10 creatures from somewhere else, right? And you got all warriors, so you're looking at warrior tribal, and so you got to think like, okay, well, do you have something else that would support the warrior tribal format, right? Now, like I said, a lot of people I know in the comments or in their heads might be saying like, oh no, these are actually really good cards, you should pick these, but you got to also consider the rest of the cards in the pool, all right? Because red just can't stand on its own. Okay, so we got Strength of Solidarity, put a +1/+1 counter for each member and your creature in your party. So again, this requires you to have a party. So let's take a look at green. Green's usually great for creatures. How many creatures do we actually have in green? So we got 1, 2. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. 6. So it's going to be very hard for me to play green because there's only 6 creatures in it again. So like, where do I even get enough creatures to play, right? Like, you know, so if I did like red green, right, I wouldn't be able to play this. Whatever other color I'd have is going to need to have a crap ton of creatures in it. So in this case, I would say green is probably not that great. So whenever land enters the battlefield you control, you get gain 1 life, which is good for to help keep you alive. It's got a good butt on it, you know. So this isn't the worst. That's you know. Now, Tajaru Paragon, being a rare, drew my attention, and it counts as a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. It only counts as one of those when establishing your party, so it doesn't. I think this is actually the example they give in the video on Wizard's website, you know, about figuring out party. So this does not count as a whole party itself. It just counts as one member of the party. So, okay, so let's move forward. All right, so Murasa Bruce is a 3/3 for 3. That's, you know, on curve, and you know, that's, you know, essentially what you want is like to have 3 power, 3 toughness for 3 mana. You know, that's basically like your standard creature. Now if you can get a 4/4 for 3, that's, you know, generally considered to be good, or if you can get an ability on top of it, that's good. And if you get a 2/2 for 3 with nothing, then that's considered to be kind of bad. So let's take a look at the rest of these. Okay, so we got Tajaru Snare Caster is a 3 mana 1/4 with reach. So again, a good blocker, but the problem is you want to keep pressure on your opponent, and that's one thing green normally does really well. The only problem is that like this creature it's good blocking, but it's not really going to give you any evasion or anything. You know, your opponent's not really going to be afraid of this creature. It could be a pain in the ass to get around it later, but like I would almost ignore this creature entirely if I could. Right, you know, unless you start pumping it up with other things, right? This creature is not really going to be that great. Okay, when Joraga Visionary enters the battlefield, draw a card. So 4 mana 3/2, but it replaces itself. Again, that's just kind of meh. You know, you get a card out of it, but this is like a 4 mana 3/2 is not that great. Essentially, you're paying an extra mana and getting a substandard creature just to draw a card. I'd rather just get a 4/4, right? You know, so I would say no to this. This card, I think, is very strong. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each 1/1 counter you put on creatures you control this turn. So if you put like 5 1/1 counters on something, then you get 5 of these. Then you get 5 1/1 green insects. That could be really, really strong, but it requires you to have a lot of ways to put 1/1 counters on things, right? And like, so you got 2 here. Right, and then like whatever else you have, like, is there anything else? So here you can put a 1/1 counter on it, so 2 more, you know. But this one's very party dependent, and so do you have enough to get a party? So there's 1 member of a party, rogue, wizard. So this you could potentially do, but there's just not enough ways to put 1/1 counters on things. Right, so that, you know, and so like for instance, and there's only like 5 creatures here, or 6 creatures, so I would need again 10 more creatures. The only problem is that there's no real bombs here. There's nothing here that if you play, your opponent's going to be like, oh crap, like I just lost, right? And so, like, red's got a little bit of stuff that's going to be more aggressive, so you could go red-green. But then the problem is your counter synergy is not really going to work, and there's not really much removal, right? And typically red has a lot of removal, but the only thing I've got is this Synchronized Spellcraft, right? So you don't have any combat tricks. There's not really much removal. You got basically like 2 cards of removal, and so your opponent's going to basically run over you with anything that they, that they have. So that's why I couldn't go red or green. Now red is still on the table because they've got a whole bunch of great creatures. Green is, like it in a constructed format, these cards might be good, especially like Iridescent Hornbeetle. That could be really good, but overall, like, that's not like, this isn't really going to help. Okay, so, and then this turn Timber Symbiosis, it's good. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. So you typically, what you want to do with this is, like, you're paying 7, right? So you want to be able to put like something huge onto the battlefield that doesn't, like, something that wouldn't cost 7 mana. Okay, if that costs as 3 or less, enters with 3 additional 1/1 counters on it, put the rest on the bottom of the library in any order, right? So, like, let's say but like, what would you get with this, right? Like, let's say I got like this Hornbeetle. Okay, so it would just get a 3/4. It would be like putting a 3/4 for 7 onto the battlefield, right? Like, that doesn't help me at all, really. And if your deck is filled with enough threats, you shouldn't need this. Now, typically what this would be used for is, like, if you have like gigantic creatures, that you want to, like a 12 mana, 15 mana creature or something like that you want to cheat out. And again, this could be really good in constructed, but for what we got here, like why would I pay 7 mana? Like, whatever I cheat out has got to be worth more than 7 mana. So I don't think this is very good. All right, so then I got blue-red, and I can't really pick this because I already said that blue is a fairly weak color in this set, or in this sealed pool. So whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, Mara Mystic gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And like I said, in sealed, it's you're picking 16 creatures and only 8 other things, so like you're not really going to hit that very often. There's not a large enough card pool to go like straight up like burn deck, right? Like, well, at least not in my pool. Okay, so then we go to these, artifacts. Okay, specifically the equipment is actually very interesting because it has auto-equip, right? So here you can give one of your creatures flying, and I thought, all right, that is something I would actually consider. So 1 mana, it automatically attaches, it gives one of your creatures flying, and then later on could be evasive if you need it. The only problem is it's not really a threat unto itself, right? So it gives like something flying, which is nice. But at the end of the day, I'd say it's not horrible, but it's not really amazing either. Okay, then we got Utility Knife, and Utility Knife is decent. A 1 mana to give your creature a +1/+1, and then later on, if that creature dies, you can put it onto something else. Yeah, I did consider taking Utility Knife, and I had a pair of them. The one here that I actually really struggled with was Spare Supplies, because Spare Supplies, it enters the battlefield tapped. Okay, I don't care about that, right? Because it's just an artifact, right? And when it comes to the battlefield, it draws you a card, which is great. And then later on, you can pay 2 and sacrifice it and draw another card. And I was like, this is actually pretty sweet, right? But then as I thought about it, I was thinking like, okay, so later on in the game, do I want to be just drawing spending my mana to draw extra cards, or would I rather spend the mana to actually just like, okay, basically what this means, like, if I have this, is on turn 2 I'm going to do nothing, right? I'm just going to put this out and replace itself. Okay, that's actually not horrible, but if your opponent's putting enough pressure on you, then they're going to put a creature down, or they're going to put like, some enchantment on you or something like that. So you're going to do nothing on turn 2 to put this down. Your opponent's going to put something else down, right? And then later on, you have to hope that you have enough mana to sacrifice this and just draw another card, right? So, I mean, it's not the worst, but I mean, I'd rather have cards that actually help you to further your game plan, right? And so I feel like this is kind of a trap, by putting this here. Okay, so remember, I got my 16 core creatures. I got 8 of anything else. So if I put 3 cards of Spare Supplies, well, then that means I've got like 3 less of anything else, right? So, I originally put these 3 in, and then I took them back out, right? Because I didn't feel like these were actually good value. All right, and then you got Relic Vial. This requires you to have a lot of a lot of clerics, right? So as long as you have a cleric, Relic Vial has whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain life. And here, the tap and sacrifice a creature, you don't want to be doing that unless you have a way to draw or make a whole bunch of tokens. I don't have a lot of ways to make tokens, and especially in sealed, that's very hard. So it's unlikely that this would ever be, very, very useful. Okay, and then Skysclave Sentinel. There's a pair of them. I actually thought this is okay, but a 3 mana 2/3 flying, but with Defender is really tough. It has Kicker, so if you cast it for 7, it comes out as a 4/5, which is better. And then it can attack. But again, you would have to have a way to put counters on it. Now, if I was choosing green, I would pick this because this would give me 2 more creatures in my green pool. And as you remember, I had 6 creatures in the green pool and also had ways to get counters. So this would go with green pretty well and it'd bring me up to 8. And whatever other color I had, would give me the 8 creatures that I'd need. Right? And that would give me a good, huge creature presence. But still, if I did that, there's still no removal. So anyways, that's what I went through. Okay, and so let's go and take a look at what I found. I chose to go white and black. Okay, so with white, I got Core Blade Master, and just equipped warriors you control have double strike. But this has double strike itself as well. And so, any double strikers are always huge. I wish I had more of this, because Core Blade Master is pretty sweet. But the problem is, I almost didn't take it because white was just not doesn't have a lot of warriors in it. Okay, so my white pool didn't have very many warriors. In fact, my black pool also does not have many warriors. I think I just have 1 other warrior somewhere down here. Yeah, there's not really a ton of warriors, but I took it because it has double strike and it's something I can do early in the game. Okay, helps me curve out. As you can see, my curve, this is exactly how it should be. You got a bunch of stuff at 1 and 2, most of your stuff at 3 and 4, and then a few things at 5 and 6. Right? You should generally not have things at 7, 8, 9, or 10 because you'll just generally not get those off. Alright, so anyways, you got the Core Blade Master, which is pretty sweet for a double striker. It's basically getting like a 2/1 for 2. So, I mean, that's pretty decent. Okay, so then Ghastly Gloom Hunter. So a flying lifelinker, which is good. And you can kick it, so if you cast it for 6, it becomes a 3/3 with lifelink. I actually have not played this card yet in the 4 matches. I never drew it. So it's hard for me to say if this is actually good, but it was a creature and I needed creatures, so there you go. At the minimum, it can be a blocker and gain you a little bit of life, right? Okay, then I got Angel Heart Protector, right? So here's where some of my real synergies start to come in. So enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains indestructible till end of turn, and so you could. I haven't actually really used that to great effect so far, but I have used it, but it's okay. It's a 3 mana 3/2, and so, you could, this is actually good to put on, give something indestructible, you can trade for something later on with it. And usually my opponents are willing to trade for this. I don't know why. I feel like, I don't know why, but they usually target this a lot. Okay, then you got Farsight Adept, a 3 mana 3/3, so this is on curve. Okay, you and target opponent each draw a card. Yep, that's actually pretty good. It'd be better if only you drew the card, but, let's say if it had Kicker 1 and only you draw the card, then that would be better, but, whatever. Okay, we have Core Celebrant. This is an awesome card. Alright, so whenever Core Celebrant or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. And it's got a big butt, so it's a 1/4, a great blocker, helps you gain, and you gain lots of life with it. Alright, and there's actually some synergies as well, which I'll go further with. So here, this is Blight Priest. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So every time you have a creature enter the battlefield under your control, right, then you gain a life, and when you gain a life, you lose a life, or your opponent loses a life. Right, so this makes things like your creatures, it basically just weaponizes creatures that are just coming into the battlefield, right? I've got Shadow Stinger. So Shadow Stinger I found was interesting because typically mill strategies in sealed don't really work very well, but this one, because you can tap another untapped rogue, it doesn't say that rogue has to be, that rogue can actually have, a lot of people don't realize this, the rogue you tap can have summoning sickness. Right, because this is an ability of this guy. It doesn't say tap this creature and another rogue gains the death touch. this creature says he can tap the other rogue if he's untapped and gains Death Touch. So if you've got one of these on turn 3, and you happen to have another one, right, then you can activate the other one, and they've got a big butt, so it's a 1/4. So your opponent might think like, oh well, he can't tap it because there's summoning sickness. I'm going to block him, right? And then you tap him, give him Death Touch. He does 1 damage, and he's not likely to die because he's got a force like a 4 toughness butt. Right, and then when he deals combat damage to a player, they mill 3 cards. And there was actually one match where I milled my opponent down to 5 cards. Right, so like it was actually really sweet. And because I had 3 of them, right, that really kind of did it for me, because I don't have many other rogues, but you know, like having a 1/4 onto the battlefield that just causes your opponent to mill 3 every time, you know, I felt like that was actually good. And there's a chance that you could actually have a pair of them, a fairly good chance, because there's 3 of them. Right, so anyways, then you got Attended Healer. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 white creature token. So here's actually a little more synergy. So for instance, like I put this down, so I gain a life, right? And then where is it here? This guy, another creature enters the battlefield, right? So I gain another life, and then this one, because I gained 2 life, my opponent loses 2 life. And then next turn, if I play another creature enters the battlefield, so I gain a life, and then this thing causes them to lose a life, and then Attended Healer will then later on create another 1/1 white creature token, which also helps me gain a life, which also my opponent lose a life, right? And so on and so forth. So there's actually some really good synergy. I actually got all 3 of these cards out at the same time in one of my matches. I think it was my match 2, but it was actually pretty sweet. Okay, so Prowling Felidar, it's a 2/3 with a landfall. So you want to put this down like as soon as possible, because you want to play your lands with Vigilance, and then also you get a +1/+1 counter on it every single time. That is actually just pretty gold. And then Highborn Vampire, a 4/3 for 4. It's not like, it would be better to get a 4/4 for 4, but the thing is, you know, if you could actually just trade with it, right? So you could actually you can hit your opponent if you can, but also like, you know, he's got a fairly good sized butt at 3 toughness, but you can also trade, like, you know, if they got a 5/4, you can trade your 4/3 for it, you know, and it's actually pretty sweet. Makindi Ox, 4/4 for 5, but every time land enters the battlefield, you can, under your control, tap target creature and opponent controls. This is actually quite strong, right? Like, so I will play this, and I will, like, let's say my opponent has 3 creatures, and you know, if they block, they can lose, you know, they can trade, you know, but they have to block with all 3. Then what I do is I'll tap the one that is least useful for them, so they can't block with it, and force them to block with one of their other better creatures. All right, so this is actually a very good card, a 5-mana 4/4 that allows you to constantly tap your opponent's creatures. Dreadworm I thought was actually pretty good. When a land enters the battlefield, you get a 5/4, but it can be indestructible. It's too bad you can't like get a land under your control, like with a Fabled Passage or something like that. And you could like just swing with it and then crack the Fabled Passage to give it indestructible later. But I actually have never played this card yet. I haven't got the card out yet. I just never drew it. Okay, Seagate Colossus is a 7-mana 7/5, and as I said, you typically don't want to play things for 7 mana, but it costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party, right? So like typically that's going to be 2 less, but maybe even 3 less for me, because I've got a few warriors, I've got some clerics, I've got some rogues, and so this could actually be a 4-mana 7/5, and I've actually gotten this out, I think, in 3 of my 4 matches, and you know, it's such a beater when you put it onto the battlefield. Okay, so let's take a look and see how many creatures I got out of this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 there. 11, 12, 13, then 14, 15, and I think I had 16. I chose this Shepherd of Heroes, but later took it out. Okay, so what did so I got my 15 creatures. I was able to get a solid core of decent creatures with good synergy. Okay, so then what else did I take? Okay, so the rest is all mainly based on removal. So I got Resolute Strike, so target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. If it's a warrior, you may attach an equipment to it. Now you can do this at instant speed, right? So typically attaching equipment is only done at sorcery speed, but it means that, for instance, like if I played this Relic Axe. Okay, so I chose a Relic Axe, so creature gets +1/+1, but if it's a warrior, it gets +2/+1. So I mean, it's just strictly better than the other knife, right? Like, because the other knife gives +1/+1, but it doesn't have the warrior clause, and it's also 2 mana and equip 3. This is 2 mana, equip 2, right? So I chose this one, and I do have some warriors, right? And when I get this on, I've actually got this on my core Blade Master two or three times, and man, getting that on there where you get like, you know, like a creature that's like a 3/2 double striker, it's just so hard to deal with. But anyways, but even if you don't have it, what you could do is you could put this on something else, and then when your core Blade Master attacks, your opponent thinks like, oh, it's just a 1/1, I'm going to trade up with it, right? You can Resolute Strike, make him a 3/3, and also attach the equipment onto him, so he becomes like a 5/4, or yeah, like it would become a 5/3 or a 5/4 or whatever, and like just like, you know, hammer your opponent, right? It could also be a really great combat trick as a finisher. So if you whittle your opponent down, right, and you've got this Relic Axe on something else, you know, you've got your core Blade Master out, but he's just a 1/1, and you swing through, right? Like if you think about it, like he's going to get +1/+1. Right, for 1 mana, okay, you let him swing through. He gets +1 or +2 from the Resolute Strike, and +2/+1, so +4 again, so +4 total, right, from the Relic Axe, and he's a 1/1, so he'd be a 5 whatever, right? But he's double strike, so he's hitting for 10, right? For 1 mana, if your opponent lets this guy through, he could hit for 10 damage, right? So that's actually just amazing. Okay, it's also a good way to just remove creatures. Okay, so Blood Chief's Thirst, destroy target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less. If it's kicked, destroy target creature. So that's just straight up removal. That's going to be really strong. Feed the Swarm, destroy target creature or enchantment. That's really strong. The Subtle Strike, basically the same thing, very similar to Resolute Strike, right? Give your target creature -1/-1, and give one of your creatures a +1/+1 counter, right? Again, very strong removal. Okay, what else do we have? Do we have anything else? Blight Priest. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So this is basically some dig. Basically, I use this to try and find removal, right? So, or, you know, if I don't have anything else, like, you know, it's a good way of just kind of like looting into or digging into your graveyard. You got Hagra Mauling, again, it's just destroy target creature, okay, and then that is about it. So basically all the destruction spells I could find, you know, and then Blood Price, which can help you find destruction spells or help you find like a good creature, right? So, or, you know, whatever you might need. So overall, like, if I had more removal, I would actually get rid of Blood Price and put more removal in. I would potentially get rid of this Blood Price and put two more Resolute Strikes in, because I think it would be like could be just ridiculous. But overall, I've been pretty happy with this. Like when I need it, you know, I fairly have a good core of creatures down, you know, and I can cast this and, you know, find a removal spell I need to get rid of that pesky, you know, like pesky 1/4 or 1/5 that my opponent might have or whatever, right? Also, yeah, like, yeah, I don't know. One time my opponent played a Nahiri against me, and I was actually able to use like Subtle Strike. So I was able to give myself a +1. She created a core creature, so I gave it a -1/-1 to kill it. Put a +1/+1 on my core Blade Master, and then I think I was also able to attach a Relic Axe to it, and then basically double strike the Nahiri and get rid of that crap, right? So, anyways, that is it. So, you know, like, let me know in the comments what you think of the deck. I feel like it's okay, and I feel like it's the best I could have done with what I had. Now, if I did have to change, I might go green and black, so replace the white creatures with green creatures, because there is some good +1/+1 counter synergy. But the only problem with that is that it's mainly based around this iridescent horn beetle, and I only have one of them. Right, so like, if you don't get this, then the whole +1/+1 strategy just goes to nothing. But anyways, let me know what you think. Do you think I could have made something different? You know, and how are you doing in your sealed and your core events, right? Or your sealed or draft events. That's it for now. It's a long one on Sunday. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.